Welcome everyone to this video on educational practice of TA. This video is intended for advanced learners and is designed with experiential exercises. So the length of the video may be longer than what is shown on it. For best learning, please do the exercises. At the end of the session, you are expected to be able to identify the major TA concepts used by experienced TA educators. You will be able to identify the similarities and differences in the clinical and educational application of TA. You'll be able to describe the nature and characteristic of TA application in education. You'll be able to objectively choose whether you want to certify in educational TA practice or clinical TA practice. Before we go on, let's look at the two major streams of TA application, clinical and developmental. Clinical applications work with persons who are mentally compromised. Developmental applications, including educational application, are ways to enhance the mental health or personal and social effectiveness of persons. Educational applications are one of the developmental applications. It may be noted here that this does not mean that educators do not know clinical application. Rather, they are able to apply TA developmentally only because they know how to apply it clinically. Many educators are clinicians themselves. In selected situations, educators do apply educational counseling, which is an application more of clinical nature than an educational nature. When this is done, the nature of the contract is different and is specifically negotiated for personal work. So essentially, the difference is in the contract and the boundary of interventions that is practiced. As you can see here, these are the TA concepts most usually used by educators. Please remember, this does not mean that other contracts are not used. All concepts are useful for all TA practitioners depending on the context and situation where they are used. Contracts, egograms, PSC model, frames of reference, group imago, the 5Ps including permission, potency, perception and practice, and the reframed therapeutic operations named as educational operations are the major concepts used by educational practitioners. If you are not familiar with any of these concepts, please go back to your 101 notes or advanced learning notes for better understanding. Here we go through the description of the characteristics of educational TA as given by many of the early educational TA practitioners. Clark says, giving information or structuring situations which will provide necessary experiences to prevent discount is what educational TA practice is. Underhill says, application resulting in positive change is educational application. Laurier says, educational TA is a field that brings together mental health and other disciplines. Stewart and Joyne says, educational TA is work addressing overt rather than covert agenda. Some other concepts are educational practice gives control over own being as given by Jan Grant. Salkman says educational TA infuses learning theories into TA. And Trudy Newton says educational TA is a practical psychology of learning, which is one of my favorite definitions. Identifying the importance of the contract relating to learning and the potential for personal change as a result has brought about more clarity and direction in defining educational TA. Let us list down some similarities and differences between clinical and developmental applications of TA. Here we are looking at theory and different levels of application to understand these differences. As you can read here, theory of TA is the same. The primary application of TA is in training practitioners. The processes are the same. in training clinical and developmental practitioners. This includes using analysis of the practitioners to facilitate their understanding of the concepts and applying the concept in working with others. That means their self-awareness. The secondary application, on the other hand, is applying TA with clients. As shown, you can see there is a major difference here. In clinical practice, there is primary and secondary analysis of clients, whereas in developmental practice, only awareness of the practitioner is emphasized. There is no analysis of the client. If clients in a developmental program needs analysis, they are usually referred. Now we will look at the differences and similarities in tools, methodologies, beneficiaries and health impact between clinical and developmental applications. The tools used are more or less the same, except that analysis is not practiced on clients in developmental applications. So again we see that the difference is in the nature of the contract and the boundary of the interventional application. In the methods of application, you can see the differences are small. Both clinical application and developmental application may be practiced in groups and individually. Clinical groups are usually smaller compared to educational groups. It may be understood here that persons with mental pathology form only a small minority in the community. Hence, therapeutic interventions are required for only a small minority in the community, whereas developmental applications like educational application is for everyone. Since developmental groups are larger, mental health impact of the developmental applications become available to a larger community. Very often, the beginning of the desire to undergo therapy in a patient may be through listening to an educational application. Now stop this video and do this exercise. Write down your answers before you proceed. Thank you for listening. If you want to listen for more, please go back and listen to the video. Thank you for listening and doing the exercise.